So a few bits and pieces just to cover the start. Firstly, welcome to STEM Community Live Q&A with Kate and Linda, and they have got a fantastic session lined up for you all this afternoon. But a couple of bits of admin for those of you who haven't attended one of these sessions before. They are recorded and they are then hosted on the STEM community. So please do make sure. I do believe I've turned everyone's cameras off. You're not able to turn them back on yourselves, but if you do turn it on, you will appear in a recording and it will be hosted on the STEM community. So please just bear that in mind. Otherwise, I think we have covered the admin, and I will hand over to Kate and Linda to introduce our guest currently and another one who is on the way, but there's been a slight delay.
Hello, yes, thank you, Tim. It's really great to welcome you all today. We're very excited about welcoming our guests today, our speakers, and we have got Farmer Anne, who is here with us, and also Farmer Tom from Farmer Time. He's busy on the farm. He's aiming for 4. It's 2 minutes past, so hopefully he will join us very, very shortly to be able to take part in the conversation. Yeah, it's great to welcome you here. I'm Kate. I'm the primary secondee at STEM Learning at the moment, and this is my colleague Linda, in case you haven't met us before, and she's the secondary secondee.
Yep, great. Thank you. Welcome. Good afternoon. I'd just like to make it clear this session is for both teachers and STEM ambassadors. For Kate and I, farming and looking at farming careers, agriculture, food production, sustainability is really important in our classrooms and our curriculum, and we hope it is for you too. What we'd like to do is connect real-world farming with science and sustainability. And for those of you thinking about organising a farm visit or inviting a farmer into your school, then hopefully we'll cover some information that will support you in that as well.
Brilliant. Yes, it should be really informative and interesting and engaging. Anne is here, Farmer Anne, and also Farmer Tom is here. So really brilliant, Tom, that you've arrived. Really great to welcome you both. Yeah, it's busy. He's been busy on the farm, look. It'd be really great if you could both, to begin with, just introduce yourselves to the people that have joined us, and give brilliant, and just give us a quick roundup of your role, please. Shall we go with Anne first?
Thanks. Thanks both for having me. I'm really excited to be part of this. So yeah, I'm Anne Chapman. We farm a tenanted family farm in North Northumberland, 372 acres, mixed arable and pedigree sheep farm. Our sort of main enterprise is sheep breeding. So we produce 60 or so shearling rams that's male sheep, for sales each September. So that's our kind of main enterprise. We do have a very small amount of arable, but this year we have chosen to go a different route, and we're using the arable with some wild winter bird seed. So I also, being a small family farm, I also work off the farm 2 days a week. I'm a bookkeeper on a local organic estate, so I'm very much still within the farming sector. So that's just 2 seconds down the road. And our typical day here is sort of starts and ends with sheep checks, sheep feeding. So both end of the day is the same thing. And then everything in between can be fencing, accounts, any animal health treatments, any tractor work that's to be done, so any field work that's to be done. But really no 2 days are the same. So it's just a lot of maintenance. It's a lot of, getting on top of the jobs that need done. So yeah, no 2 days are the same here.
No, I can imagine. And I know, having been out to your farm a number of times, Anne, with our students, that you're always busy. I know you're also a Leaf Ambassador. Can you just very briefly tell us what that is?
Is right. So I've been a Leaf Ambassador for North East England for the last 5 years now. So I work on the Open Farm Sunday side of things. And that's about just promoting basically one open day a year. It's usually the second Sunday in June, where we open our farms to the public and encourage other farmers to do the same. Open the farms to the public, usually a free event, maybe some things that will cost within there. And we encourage the public to come onto the farm, speak to us directly, cut out any middlemen, dispel any myths they may have, and enjoy a day on the farm. Generally very family oriented. where they can ask questions freely, they can find out things for themselves. And in this case, we do a sort of self-guided farm walk, and we have a farmers market, and we try and do lots of things that support other local businesses as well. So it's about community. It's about forming a bit of a community within using our farm as the hub for that one day.
It's a brilliant day, and as a teacher, actually, if you've got an Open Farm Sunday event near you, I'd really recommend getting along and speaking to your local farmer and finding out if there's any opportunity to go and visit their farm or meet other farmers that are there, and see what can be done to help support your school and the curriculum. So it's June the 8th this year is Open Farm Sunday. Thanks, Anne.
No problem.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
So over to you, Tom. Tom and I have known each other about 6 years. We've worked together at various points to do with farming in at the school where I work, and also much more nationally as well. So it's great to see you, Tom. Thank you for joining us. If you could just explain a little bit about what you do, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing Anne to go first so that I could have a bit of time to calm myself down and sort myself out. So we're just west of Peterborough here in Cambridgeshire. We're a medium-sized family farm. We're largely an arable farm, so we farm wheat for bread making and animal feed and biofuels. We farm barley for beer, Maltesers, animal food as well. We grow rapeseed, some people call that canola. We grow beans, we grow buckwheat. We've got a bit of grass, so we have a few sheep just to keep ourselves from going on holiday too much. And we're trying to farm regeneratively, so that's the kind of direction we're heading in, where we're being more sustainable and employing a number of different regenerative practices. But we're also passionate about helping people to see what happens on the other side of the farm gate. So that's where this comes in. That's where Farmer Time comes in. That's where Open Farm Sunday comes in, and the likes of Leaf and other great organisations. So we're pleased to be part of that farm education ecosystem. And I might appear on my computer at some point when that slowly loads up as well. So I do excuse any slight technical things that will be going on. I've had a relatively typical day today. So I've had meetings. I've been spraying this afternoon, putting some nutrition on our wheats, which are just coming into ear. I've been trying to fix the lawnmower. I've been doing a bit of administration, ordering a few things, and generally probably getting myself wound up by trying to do too many things at once.
But what an amazing impact you can have on children through Farmer Time. You've had such an impact on such a lot of children and adults as well. We've done meetings when adults have equally been as enthused, and our farmer Colin, our kids might zoom into Colin, and he's in a combine that he doesn't have to drive, and the kids are wowed. Or Tom's on the floor with his phone looking at the grass, or on a great big pile of manure, and all these different things.
That's what we've been doing today. We've been carting manure as well.
Yeah, it's really, really effective. Linda and I have been talking, and there's such a lot of different resources teachers can use. Siri at the University of Manchester have got some really brilliant. There was Farmvention and
I've used Anne actually for assembly. She's come in with the NFU to do its Farmers for Schools, I think is the scheme. Is that right, Anne?
Engineering Educate.
And there's Engineering Educate as well at Siri at Manchester, as you say. I'm just putting some links in the chat for those of you who are teachers. That'll give you links to Farmer Time and the NFU Speakers for Schools, just to give you some access to resources you may or may not be familiar with.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Got a question for Thomas.
Thomas, how much percentage of your many food grown is for animal feed?
Oh, I missed a little bit of that, but hang on, I can see. Great question, Nicola. So what percentage of my food is grown for animal feed? Well, ideally 0%. We grow malting barley, which should go for beer making and Maltesers. We grow largely milling wheats, which should go for milling for wheat, for biscuits, for bread, for other products, biofuels as well. But when we don't hit the grade, which is a very high grade for food standard, that's when we fall back on the animal market. So it varies from year to year. It might be 80% for animal feed. It might be 20%. I hope it's 20% because I generally get a bit of a better price for bread making, but it's been a bit of a challenging year this year with our grass weeds, which is where our fungal disease tends to hang around, and that's when we get rejections for our milling wheat. So without getting into too much depth, which I love to do, yeah, we'll have to see this year.
Yeah, really interesting actually, that just to mention, Tom, you were on Countryfile, weren't you? And it was really interesting. It was harvest time and they followed you for a few weeks. And I'm sure that's probably on the iPlayer somewhere. And that was really interesting to me, learning about the different grades of grain and yeah, really fascinating.
And not to outdo you, but Anne's been on Countryfile as well.
Oh, brilliant.
It's always a shock having your produce rejected on national television, and that's what happened there. So, but that is farming. That is, that's real life. So it was great to portray that.
Yeah, Linda and I were chatting, and we were wondering if there were any misconceptions about farming that you could perhaps share with us. I was telling Linda about some of the really young kids at our school that asked Colin if he'd ever had flamingos on the farm, or if a cow had ever blown away. I mean, they were tiny little kids, but are there any things that you've noticed that crop up regularly that are misconceptions?
But children and teachers too, actually.
Yeah.
I think adults can be as guilty as younger students with misconceptions about farming.
Is that too? Well, I just picked that one up.
Yeah.
So I think the most common one that we come across is that farming is still a very low skilled job, which is incredibly, to me, I find it's really shocking that people still actually think that. So it's still, people don't understand what you need to do, what you need to be. You need to be this end a vet, and this end an accountant. You need to be incredibly good at mathematics off the top of your head. You need to be all the things in between. So I think we're far from a low skilled career. And there is a lot more technology involved in it nowadays, and you've got to be really clued up. We're ever evolving. So that's what I don't understand. I don't understand why other people think this, because farming has to evolve. We evolve daily, and sometimes at the drop of a hat. So yeah, I think that's the most common one that we find here.
Yeah, I think from just Tom's description of his day shows the range of activities you've got to be able to cope with, definitely. Tom, I'll let you answer, and then your answer links into something that I was about to ask.
Yeah, and actually links into my answer in a way. I mean, it's the breadth and range of what we do here on the farm. And there was a great example a few years ago. I've been paired with a brilliant teacher for the last 6 or 7 years, and as we get to know each other better, and as I'm understanding curriculum, she's understanding the farm better. It gets better and better each year. But we had a conversation a few years ago, text message, Tom, let's not do a call this week. Let's not do a video call. There's nothing we're studying that's really appropriate to illustrate on the farm. And I said, well, what are you studying? And she said, well, we're studying genetics. And I said, every farmer in the UK can talk genetics, and she wasn't to know at the time. I said, every farmer is trying to breed cattle that give birth easier, or crops that are more resistant to disease, or have a higher yield. Or I said, every farmer, whatever we're doing, we can talk about genetics. We may not be able to define phenotype. I don't think I still can do that.
Very impressed.
But we can certainly talk genetics. And actually, the call we had after that was we sat between two different varieties of rapeseed, and I explained that I had a lot of problems with my crop being eaten by pigeons, so I needed autumn vigor. I explained what autumn vigor was, obviously fast growing crops in the autumn, and we looked at the kind of the outworking of the two different genetics, the two different strains, and we were talking about genetics, we were seeing genetics, we were learning about genetics, and so I would say there are so many topics that can and are illustrated on farms. And I would just close by saying, farmers are scientists. We do research, we make hypotheses, we put them into action, we try and control our variables, we take data, we analyze results, we realize where we went wrong sometimes, and come up with new hypotheses, and that's how our year runs.
I really like the fact that you're saying farmers are scientists. As a science teacher, I've become familiar through Open Farm Sunday when I went to Anne's farm last year of the Boffin Network, so the British On-Farm Innovation Network. And it's the trials that they're holding, so they're getting funding for it. But actually, they're very freely sharing their information and their trial data to try and improve the outcomes of farming across the UK. So it absolutely is rooted in science, I would say, and technology as well. I was going to ask about what STEM are you using regularly on your farm, but actually I think I'll pick up with what you were saying, Tom.
And isn't it fascinating?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, isn't it interesting? And the Boffin Network, they're studying, they're studying wheats that are more resistant to predation, or there's just so we're more resistant to slugs, and there's just so much real science going on. And actually, it all illustrates what's going on in the classroom as well. There's a huge the Venn diagram of farming in the classroom has a huge area of overlap, and it's something that we can realise and take advantage of.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I was going to ask, what do you feel, both Anne and Tom, needs to be added to the school curriculum? I know you've got some exposure to it through school visits. What do you think needs to be added to support farmers and agriculture in the UK to develop that next breed of young farmers coming through into agriculture?
For me, I still think you can't be getting feet on farms. So I think it's the experience of leaving the confines of the classroom and coming out and being on farm. I mean, I can remember even being a farmer's daughter. I can remember going to other friends' farms, on school visits, and it was something else to learn. It was lifelong experiences that you learn there. We still talk about them now. So I think it's vital to get people onto farm to show that it is a viable career, to show that we're not a backwards industry. We're very forward thinking and very open to change and improvements. But it also gets the message out there of our high welfare standards, how we operate, and the sort of driving home the buy British, buy seasonal, buy local, all of the things that go along with supporting the British agricultural industry can be taught or spoken about while they're on the farm. And I think that's the best way to do it, because you can talk all day long in a classroom until you're actually on the place, getting a feel for the place, getting a feel for the people and the land. I think that's where the impact is. So I'd like to see farm visits actually added to the curriculum. Farming on the curriculum, great. Actual out of school farm visits added to the curriculum, I think would be a huge bonus.
I found them really useful, I have to say, for me and my subject knowledge, as well as for the engagement of the students. As you know, I do a level 2 course. It's a very small uptake at the moment, but we are trying to build it. And I have to say, the visits to your farm really help support in getting kids enrolled on the course, because they can see the photos and the videos of previous visits.
And that's a land-based study.
That's land-based studies, yeah. I'll put a link in the chat.
Really, it's quite interesting to see them being, maybe on that initial first time you meet them, quiet, unwilling to sort of give any feedback or ask questions. Then by the time you got them for the second and third visit, entirely different kids, really happy to be there, really energetic, really engaged. And you can, with that kind of age as well, you can have a bit of back and forth. They are young adults, they're not little children, so you can have quite decent conversations with them, quite meaningful conversations. So I think that's a really good time to get them at that age.
Yeah. What about you, Tom? What do you think about what should be added to the curriculum?
Well, I was going to say, Anne, that's a great example of the kind of additional benefits. We find that children are, they're not only illustrating their learning, but they're kind of gaining experience and confidence in asking questions, in speaking to outside sources, in being curious, in looking at problem solving, in meeting somebody who runs a business, all those things as well. There are so many additional benefits there. But I think the change I'd make, and I know this is going to be popular, is about funding. I would definitely fund our educators and our farmers to do this more.
Yeah, and I think that will help. Schools, as everyone knows, with any public sector, it is,
we run,
yeah, strapped for cash. Sorry, Tom, you're sort of cutting in and out.
Yeah, sorry, a little bit of a poor connection. In a moment, I'm going to go outside, and it'll actually be better outside. Farmer time, we run video calls from the farm to the classroom, and the characteristics at the beginning of the year, generally our teachers say we don't have the funding for a farm visit, and by the end of the year, normally they've found the funding because they can really see the value and the kind of return on investment of the visit.
That's brilliant to hear. Really good news. So we've got some questions in the chat.
Yeah. Paul Robinson has asked, please, Anne and Tom. Paul is a STEM ambassador and engineer based in Rydale, North Yorkshire. It's a rural location and many of the children come from farming families. Sometimes they struggle to understand the link between STEM and farming, but the agribusiness seems to be getting more technical all the time. What tips do you have to encourage children in STEM subjects, please?
I think it's a great question, and we've seen that working out on our farm with young people coming to work with us and thinking, well, I don't like classroom learning and I don't like English and maths. So there is, and we really underline this, that English and maths in particular are a really important basis for farming. It's absolutely imperative, and we insist that there's a good level, particularly of maths, but of English and maths. If we can't communicate and do our sums, then we can't begin to do some of the higher level stuff on farm. But I think just demonstrating it, getting into the nuts and bolts, getting beyond Clarkson's farm, and actually beginning to realise where farming is at the moment. If you were to look at a demonstration of robotic planting and weeding, it's very clear that that's not just somebody with a kind of low level understanding of a couple of things. That's a high level function that requires programming, technology, mechanics, biology, botany, a huge amount of other topics as well.
How do you find, because even when I'm
instead of
Sorry, Tom, I thought you'd finished. Again, the sound's cutting in and out a little bit. I was going to say, when I teach A-level biologists, so these are students 16, 17, 18 years old, I find it very difficult to get them interested in plant biology and plant science. Have you got any tips on what we could do to try and improve their engagement with plants particularly?
I just find it so exciting, although at school I love my biology, but struggled with things I couldn't see with my own eyes. I mean, now I'm absolutely wowed by what's going on in the soils, what's going on in our plants. I mean, some of the kind of standout, take your breath away facts about how quickly plants are communicating, trees are communicating with each other, or plants are communicating with fungi to obtain nutrients is just astounding. And I think that for me is a bit of a wow. I'll tell you what I always do, particularly this time of year, is I take people out. We go out into our field of beans, and I say to them, "Are you okay with the sight of blood?" And normally there's a little bit of a stir. Some people, I'm not really sure if I am or not. And we go and look at leg hemoglobin, which is the kind of pinky.
Ooh, you've cut out again, Tom.
Substance, which is effectively the leg hemoglobin in the nodules in the plant root of legumes. So that normally grasps attention pretty well.
Yeah, I'm just doing, there's a Sutton bean project at the moment that about 100 schools in the UK are taking part in. And part of it is to see we're planting different types of legume and around the UK, and actually do they form nodules in the different soils and the different climates and what have you. And one of the points to look for is, are the nodules pink? Because that will tell you that they're active rather than just being white. And what about you? I think that Tom's point links back to you about getting students on farms to help that engagement and interest. I mean, obviously you have arable crops. Do you find your students, when they come and visit, that they're interested in them, or?
That's a little bit driven by me because I'm much more interested in sheep than I am in arable crops. So that's really, we talk more on the sheep side, but we have a very small amount of arable here. We've only got about 80 acres, and this year, as I touched on before, we actually don't have any at all. Although it's still classed as arable use, it's now into winter birdseed this year, which has been very fortunate with the weather that we've got and so forth, and it's kind of fitted our system this year, so that's worked. But we do look at the soil. We certainly go and we dig. We take part in things like the Plant Your Pants experiment, which I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen, but certainly with the younger kids, it's a really interesting way to get them engaged with the soil and the soil health and how little microorganisms are working away in the soil the whole time, even though to the naked eye it might look particularly like there's nothing going on. Yes, you can see the earthworms, but to everyone else, it doesn't look like anything else is happening. So when we take part in that experiment where we dig sort of 6 to 8 inches usually before below the top level, and we just lay some lovely cotton underpants in the soil, and then again in about 6 or 8 weeks time we dig them up, and the hope is that obviously they are disintegrated quite considerably if you've got nice active soil. So we do that on a regular basis, usually about Easter time with any primary or first schools that are on the place, and then we do the results in 6 or 8 weeks time, and we share that with them, and we talk about what's gone on, why do you think this has happened. But when we're digging the hole in the first place, they're there, they're helping, they're engaging, they're touching the soil, they're smelling the soil, and we're having a look at what's going on within it. So I think that's a vital thing to do. And whilst we're not terribly arable, you know, the soil health has got to be there. We want grass, so we've got to look after that soil. So it is, for us, that's the importance, is looking after that to grow the grass that we need to obviously produce the sheep that we produce. So we do touch on it, but especially with the younger generation, with that bit of fun.
I'm also thinking of when I brought our students out and you let us do some tree planting on your farm.
Yes.
And that actually, I was surprised at how well they engaged with that, getting hands-on and planting the trees.
Absolutely fabulous, given the remits, you know, given the measurements to step out and showing them how to do it once, and off they went in their groups and planted. I'm trying to think how many probably planted, possibly about 150 trees through weather that was very cold at one end of the day and then very warm at the other end of the day. So you know, they did it really well. So that was a really good conversation to have, and how important it was to plant it in the correct way to, you know, increase the survival of that tree. But they took it all on board, which is yeah, it's great. So I think the hands-on side of things, and not just the coming and looking, and I think it's really nice to get them actually involved in that in an activity that means something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can see Tom's just taking himself outside. He's getting organised, which is one of the beautiful things about Farmer Time, because it's just a window into another place. Yeah, and the kids absolutely love it. There are questions coming up in the chat about sustainability and climate literacy. So just want to ask you guys really what sustainability looks like on your farm, and any. Well, we'll start with that one. Yeah. So sustainability first, please. Shall we go back to Tom?
You can certainly give it a go if you can still hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, we're passionate about sustainability in our farm. I think a lot of farmers realise that that's the way that we need to go, but also the way we want to go. We've got to look after our soils. So we farm regeneratively, which means we've reduced or eliminated our tillage. We use very little in the way, well, we use no insecticides for the last 6 years. We're using our cover cropping, which is something that a lot of gardeners do, but we're just starting to kind of get back into as farmers. And we're incorporating livestock into our arable rotations, which of course bring all the benefits of that. There's kind of huge amount of work to be done to learn how we can continue to feed everybody and farm sustainably. But I'm really passionate. I'm really excited about that as an opportunity. We can get into a huge amount of depth, and I'm very, very happy to, looking at world soil profiles and things like that, and how basically what we're doing on our farm is, and many farms, is trying to mimic nature. When you look at, and particularly there's a question about sheep grazing, but when you look at the kind of deepest, richest soils across the world. They're the kind of oxysols and the mollisols, and they're all beneath the kind of historically grazed grasslands, the savannas, the steppes, the plains, the pampas, the prairies. And of course, they're used to these ecosystems are designed. They're kind of used to the passage of megafauna every kind of 6 months or so, a million wildebeest or bison or whatever it might be. We're really just trying to mimic that with our mob grazing, and we can really build carbon, build soil health, improve our air and water quality, improve our biodiversity both above the ground and below the ground, and do a huge amount there, but also show people what we're doing as we're going on the way. If we're not telling people what we're doing, then in the modern world, perception is reality. If people don't know what we're up to as farmers, don't know that they can be proud to buy British produce, then that's our fault, or the kind of impetus is with us to share them. I think while we're doing that, we're helping to educate the next generation, and hopefully helping them to inspire them to be able to journey well. So for a little deep dive, I'll go a bit deeper, but I think we'll probably just leave that there on that one.
How about you, Anne?
Yeah, so I'm just going to read you a little bit of a quote, actually, from a newspaper cutting back in 2005. My father was one of the first farmers in this area to take up the higher tier countryside stewardship. So these schemes allow me to adopt a less intensive method of farming, more like the farming my father did 50 or 60 years ago, which benefits the land and the wildlife it supports. So that was 2005. So we farm very much with the same ethos now. We always have done. So we try and work with nature rather than against it. We certainly look at improving the soil quality. We do have a relatively low stocking density. So we run 300 pedigree sheep, and we tend to mob graze them, rotational graze them. And we have put in some improved pastures as well. So we're always looking at the biodiversity within the fields as well, and something that's going to support the sort of healthier soils and the deeper roots, and tapping into the minerals and vitamins that we need, that we can't reach just in that top 6 inches. So I also mentioned that we have the winter birdseed at the moment. So we've adopted that, and yes, it was driven in part by the SFI scheme. It's happened to fit in this year. Linda will know why, with my father being 80 and various health conditions. So it's fitted in this year. But the benefits it's creating are clear to see. So it's going to be resting our arable soils. So that's a benefit in itself. The field the 2 fields are actually buzzing. We have seen such an increase in the pollinators, the skylarks, the lapwings. We have some curlew as well across at the moment. So the benefits do speak for themselves. So it's just a case of working with the land that you've got, try and improve it. But we farm very much like a sort of a family farm of years gone by. We're not a big arable unit. And we do have to look after our grazing for our sheep. So it's we're not very intensive, very low input, but we try and nurture what we have rather than ravage it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sustaining it for future generations.
Yeah, exactly.
And your sons are coming through, aren't they?
We're going to David's question.
Dave's been very patient. He's put a question in the chat quite a while ago. For both of you, how worried are you about climate change, and what are you doing to mitigate its effects?
So
on you go, Joel.
I can answer that. Incredibly concerned about climate change. We're the first people to experience it. It has the biggest impact on what we do out of everybody. Particularly extreme periods of drought, the kind of the intense weather that we've been seeing. We're the kind of record breaking. Or the records falling month by month, it seems, are having a huge impact. And a lot of it on the farm comes down to resilience. So why are we trying to improve our soil health? Of course, it's the right thing to do, but it also means that our soils are more resilient. We're trying to build our soil organic carbon. For every, I think, 1% increase in soil organic carbon in the top 30 centimetres, you're storing another 350,000 litres per hectare. Wow. So that's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to develop those crops to to breed them so that they are more able to resist drought, disease, and kind of other impacts that we're getting. And don't forget, it's not just the direct impacts of climate change. Yes, we're getting sustained wet periods and sustained dry periods, but in those sustained wet periods, for example, we'll see much higher instances of disease and pests, and that's across our arable land and in our livestock and in everything we're doing.
Would you like to add to that, Anne?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So with us, it's very much looking at, again, it's our grazing system. So with this this spring that we've had, which has just been unbelievably dry, we have the position we're in, we have a southerly facing hill and we have a northerly facing hill. So obviously the southerly facing will burn up incredibly quickly. It's very old pasture. It's on a sort of exposed rock face as well, which doesn't help. So it's very thin soil. Our north facing hill is very old permanent pasture, which we've improved as well. Northerly facing, but a good, nice, thick coverage. It's not bare. It's on good soil. So a good, nice, thick coverage, a good bit of length about it, and it's as green as it could ever be. So it's looking, again, it just harks back to the stocking density. It's all about grazing what your fields can cope with, rather than putting them on and absolutely mullering them. That's not how we do it here. It's about preserving that cover, which then creates a bit of a microclimate, keeps a bit of moisture in the soil, versus this open, dry, eaten to the bare bones grazing. So that's kind of how we adopt our grazing principles here and have done for quite some time.
Yeah, obviously a very serious situation. I'm smiling away at the cow right behind Tom, but yeah, very serious. And I might just add, Linda and I watched the six inches of soil film, which I would highly recommend people to watch, because it's literally so fascinating and so informative.
I'll just pull up if I can get a link. I'll put it in.
Yes, thank you.
As part of this, we're engaging in inspiring the next generation, and these are the kind of problems, the questions, the issues the challenges that they'll be able to help us address. I mean, there is so much opportunity within farming, environment, food production, and we absolutely need the brightest and best. So it might just be on some of these calls, or on a farm visit, or on an open farm Sunday, that someone's interest is piqued in some minutiae that's actually so imperative to the world of tomorrow, and preserving what we have, and improving our environment. So that's where it's really, really exciting.
Yeah. We've got a question from Nicola. There are over 30 million sheep in the UK, which is a major contributor to climate change, as one sheep can produce 30 litres of methane a day. How can we avoid this for the future? So I don't know if you're aware of steps that people are doing in research, or with feeds and supplements and what have you. What are your thoughts around what we can do to limit methane production from ruminants?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, I think it's a bit of controversy with the methane reducing feed that's being trialled at the moment. Just interestingly enough, yes, there's over 30 million. I think it's 32 million. We're actually at 11-year low when it comes to national sheep flock. Which again we will see, I would say, judging by what I'm hearing from lambing reports this year, will take another plummet into next year, and especially with the high prices everyone is experiencing with the cull sheep market. So I'd expect that to drop still. As far as methane reduction, I'm not too sure how to comment on that. Tom, do you have anything to add? I'm not terribly up on my. Well, I don't know if I support a feed supplement, something that's reducing. Is there a more natural way to do it? That's what I'd like to see. Is there something else that we can be doing naturally, rather than a compound feed with an additive that reduces that? I think that would be a more environmental way to deal with it. So how do we find that? Who's got that answer?
If I'm happy to comment. I mean, I'm probably getting a little bit away from the scope of the call, but there's so much nuance in a lot of these debates. I mean, methane is a flow gas. It is something which breaks down over a shorter time period. It's very much part of the carbon cycle, which is a cycle that we actually need to be operating as fast as possible in order to store, to kind of fix and store carbon in the soils. As I say, it's a flow gas, and so its half-life is kind of 7 to 10 years. So by reducing the national herd, we're actually significantly reducing the amount of methane that we have. And that's across all our ruminants as well. So it's a challenging debate. There's a huge amount of nuance there, but for me, it's about getting carbon from the air and putting it into the soil, as opposed to getting carbon, subterranean fossil carbon, out of the ground and putting it back into the air. That's the carbon cycle working, is what we see on the farm, and basically the carbon cycle being fed into is what we see when we talk about fossil fuels. But as I say, that's probably a bit outside the scope of the call. I'm very happy to pick up that on Farmer Tom on socials as well.
Brilliant, Tom. Thanks, Tom.
Brilliant. Yes, we've got another question. So it's about programmes such as Clarkson's Farm. While simplifying things, they are driving interest in agri-tech and farming. What are your views about those kind of programmes?
I think love Jeremy or hate Jeremy. I personally love Jeremy. I think most people do. His program is doing the world of good. I know it takes it all with a pinch of salt, but I think getting it out there to the masses, and yes, there's a bit of humour involved and the daily problems and the things farmers come up against, but it is a simplistic view of how we experience farming on a day-to-day basis, and it's getting it out to the public, which I think it's not going to do any harm. It can only help, and I think that's the general consensus from anyone that I speak to about it. Yes, it's done with a bit of humour, but you listen to his profit margin at the end of the year, and everyone goes, "Oh God, that can't be right," but actually it is. So he's just great at getting it out there, great at supporting farming, and I don't think that can be a bad thing.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I'm just looking at some of the comments in the chat. There's one from Barbara saying she started farm visits over 25 years ago, but had to stop in the last few years as they didn't have a suitable farm. So I would just say to Barbara, maybe go to the NFU Farmers for Schools. I put a link in the chat earlier on, and hopefully there'll be someone in your area, your region, that is willing to come into school and maybe host visits, or maybe try Farmer Time and see if there's a farmer that you can do virtual calls with on a regular basis. So that hopefully will help there. Sorry, I'm just checking some of the other comments.
So yes, I'm just having a look at some of the things we wanted to chat with you guys about, and we're thinking about careers and STEM skills, and what particular skills you feel are really important for children as they're growing into adults and potentially our future farmers, and ways that we can, apart from Farmer Time perhaps, other ways that we can really engage them with hopefully wanting to go into your area of
your field.
Learning. Yeah, your field. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Tom, do you want to go first?
Yeah, very happy to. I mean, for me, it's less about specifically kind of highlighting that route into farming. For me, it's just arousing that curiosity. And just really getting their brain cells going, getting them functioning at the top of their capability. I don't care what they're interested in, as long as they're interested in something, and that we're giving them the avenue, the outlet for that. And I suppose it's back to that earlier point was helping people to understand that the kind of huge outlet for whatever they're interested in. It might be that they're that they're interested in various different elements of science, and they have a career. There's an opportunity in farming and food production. So that's just the exciting thing, is just I've got a couple of nephews, and they're both completely different, but they've just find elements of fascination on the farm, and I think you'd struggle to come to a farm and not find something that you're fascinated by. It might be trees and hedging, it might be the pond life, it might be the back end of a cow, it might be whatever it is, whatever you're interested in, there is an outlet there, and whatever you're learning, whatever's grasping you at the moment, there's an illustration on farm, and that's what's quite so exciting.
No, just to back that up, I completely agree with Tom there, but I would maybe add, if there was a way of getting into sort of a mentoring scheme, or if there was someone that you could look up to, I I think that's a really sort of good way to do it. But, you know, as long as they've got the willingness to listen and the willingness and the keenness and the excitement to learn something, there is a world of, you know, career opportunities and exciting engagement and ideas within farming. So, yeah, like Tom said, you know, come to the farm. There will always be something that will grab someone's attention, certainly.
Yeah. I really like your idea of a mentoring scheme, and I think that's fantastic. And I mean, I know obviously there's young farmers clubs out there. I don't know whether that's something that it is potentially, if you've got young people as teachers, it might be worth trying to contact your local young farmers club.
Kind of peer-to-peer learning is really important. So I think that's you know, that's certainly where to start. It would be a great idea if you someone around about the same age, but you know, a few years more experience, you're more inclined to listen. Or you would be more inclined to listen, but don't rule out the older generation as well. There's a wealth of knowledge there. You know, they'll have forgotten more stuff than you'll ever have remembered so far. So it's, they've lived through a lot of change. They've had to adapt. They've had to overcome. And I don't like the older generation being sort of pushed to one side, because there is a lot of knowledge there to still be gained in this current situation that we're in. So I think, you know, yes, it's great, the same generation, but look to the older ones as well. There's always something to be gained. In fact, there's a wealth of knowledge there to be gained.
And just real in-depth local knowledge, isn't it, about the fields and the flooding and rainfall and what have you. I think you're right, we shouldn't dismiss that at all.
Because talking to older shepherds and older farmers, you can actually there is a bit of you can build this sort of pattern of what's happened over the years in certain areas, and you know, how and when this happened, and when it's all about that kind of the location. The local knowledge is really important as well. I think that's a really good point.
Fab. If we look at school visits, sorry, Tom.
If I may say, just you know, it's also all farmers are small or even medium sized, but they're small business owners. And I think that, you know, that's the kind of inspiration and motivation. And we've had lots of great examples of school projects which relate to the farm that they're paired with through farmer time, or perhaps they visited. We had a class who were doing a design and technology project, and they were designing it, and the farmer was going to put a new shed up. So they decided that they'd design a new shed that was more sustainable, used less electricity, was better for the cattle, you know, had better conditions. So, you know, there are so many. I suppose the idea of mentoring is a kind of pretty linear, ongoing interaction, a relationship. But there are so many elements that we can kind of deconstruct from what we're doing, and it could be, as I say, it could be just pitching some ideas across to the farmer, or giving them some challenges. What would you do? You know, what would you do in this situation? Or is there a time when you've had to come up against something, you know, in the vein of whatever we're learning, and just see what they come up with. It's there's a huge potential beyond just the kind of simple mentoring, I would say.
Yeah, and massive benefits. Obviously, Linda, you and your pupils have visited Anne's farm, and my children in you know, children in urban areas, or my children who are in a rural area but still don't get to go out to farms and things, have been able to have massive benefits from engaging with farmer time. And so it's helping them to develop their transferable skills, and you know, really, it's really interesting and engaging in school, but also it gives them knowledge, which as a primary careers advocate, which I am, it helps them, like Tom, myself, we all have these wiggly lines to the jobs that we're in now. We haven't just been really linear. And so for them to understand that people can take different routes, and you know, everything's not just one straight line always, is also a really important thing, I think.
And just for anyone who is a farmer or a STEM ambassador, just to remind you that organisations such as CIRI have some lovely resources. The NFU's Farmvention resources as well are really good. So, you know, Tom, you were suggesting about getting the students to design the barn. Well, there are some other ideas about projects that farmers could use with students in school groups. and obviously teachers can maybe support with that as well. I just wanted to touch on school visits. So we've got about 10 minutes left of the day. I have to say that working with you, Anne, you've made school visits to a farm really, really easy. My local authority views school farm sites as industrial sites. So you've got to get the approvals in much quicker. You've got to have more members of staff present. But your risk assessments that you supply have really helped me in writing what I have to do to get the approval for the trip. So I suppose really we just want to kind of get some ideas around what is it that teachers can do if they're interested in organising school visits. What should they consider before actually going ahead and trying to bring pupils out to a farm?
I think you have to consider, so what are you wanting to achieve is obviously your main thing. So where does this, what box does it tick within the curriculum, and then some? What else can it can it expand on that rather than just being this one point that you tick? I think you've got to obviously affordability comes up. That was definitely something Tom mentioned earlier. There's a big bone of contention. So the affordability factor, is it local? We're obviously quite local to you, Linda, so it's and you're able to sort of hire buses from local schools and things like that. What else do you need to consider for farm visits? I mean, you just what are you wanting to achieve? Can that farm provide that? Can you visit that farm more than once to tick multiple things? Because obviously you're building up a rapport with that farmer. I think that's quite important as well, rather than dotting about. So are there different subject matters that can be covered in different visits? And then the rest of it is literally just the safety aspect. We're very used to doing it here because we obviously open to the public as well. But it's obviously worth doing a site visit beforehand. Before you arrive with your pupils, I would suggest doing a site visit. Have your ears and eyes open. Look for any hazards yourself. You're coming on the farm as a new person. I'm here all the time. You might be able to see hazards more readily than I would. We've actually done most of them here, so I'm pretty got my eyes wide open to that situation. But yeah, I would have a visit beforehand, try and build a rapport with the farmer and get multiple visits. I suggest that would be a good way to do it, because you do tend to get much more out of your pupils on a return visit than you do on your first visit, especially with the older ones, especially the teenagers. The younger ones tend to engage as soon as they're off the bus. They're so excited to be out of school, and they're just desperate to be running about and having fun, whereas the older ones are much more sort of insular. But they do come out of the shells quite quickly on the second visit. So I'd suggest that would be a good sort of
strategy. Yeah, definitely planning multiple visits to as you say, cover different curriculum areas.
Well, it just changed. It covers much more subjects, but it just changes the whole dynamic of the. You're no longer just someone they're coming to see. You become someone that they know. And the dynamic changes entirely. So it's, I think, much more is learned that way than me just preaching, because that's not.
And it's the seasonality of things on the farm as well, isn't it? If you only do one visit, you don't get that
exactly. You're not
understanding of how things change.
And and also following a process. So we obviously yourself and your class visit at scanning time. So we pregnancy scan all our ewes, and you see that through to fruition at lambing time. So it's nice to follow. If you were Tom, if you were sewing and then bringing that into the shed. So it's finding this process and following it from start to finish. I think is really important to understand again seasonality and what's going on the farm.
Yeah, Tom, what about you? I was just going to say, what makes a farm visit successful from your point of view?
Well, just following on from Anne's point there, I mean, and that's where farmer time really dovetails in really well. A farm visit is fantastic. You can touch and taste and smell and all those wonderful things. But with farmer time, we do video calls throughout the year. So there's the relationship. There's seeing things born and grow and planted and raised and harvested. So you really are journeying. But also it's that building up of confidence. The third, fourth, fifth calls, I'm hearing different names. And Kate, probably in your class, the children who are perhaps a little bit more cautious or reluctant are plucking up the courage. They're building confidence to ask questions of somebody who was a stranger and is now becoming somebody they know
love it,
a little bit better.
Farmer. Yeah.
Yes, it's really exciting, and it's just helping them with all those kind of I suppose extracurricular, but it's not. It's absolutely part of what we're doing in the classroom. Is we're building young people's personalities, characters, and capabilities for the future. But yeah, farm visits. We do a lot of farm walks and probably less the specific in-person school visits on our farm. But I just say just go for it. You know, just I think once you've done one, once you've kind of looked into it, once you've perhaps done a pre-visit to the farm, if it's something you can in the local area, then you know, all of a sudden when the energy builds, the excitement's there, and you start to see the possibilities, you also start to be able to overcome any issues or concerns or challenges. So I just say be inspired. And frankly, I think when you've seen the children bounce off the bus, or Kate, you know, after the farmer time call, now there's something around the corner. Yeah, I think that then motivates us to take that step and put that little bit of extra energy into book onto farmer time or to arrange a farm visit for the following year.
Yeah, and great for mental health and well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. Being out in the soil, in the green rather. I was just Lauren's added a question mark about work experience in high schools. Are you aware of farmers that take students on work experience? Are there insurance limitations? Do they have to be 16, or is it something that does happen?
I actually don't. I don't think this should be an issue at all. My eldest is on work experience actually at the minute, and he's 15. He's actually gone into school, so he's looking at coaching and teaching and things like that, because we're trying to go and do something else first before you come back to farming. So we always try and do that. But on the list, there was certainly farms. This was on the Scottish side. There are certainly farms that were taking on work experience pupils, so that's age 15. So there didn't appear to be any age limit there. I would imagine the red tape will be pretty hefty, but it will be no different to me hosting a visit. So as long as your risk assessments are in place, your insurers, NFU in our case, are very supportive of everything we do. As long as your insurers are on board and you have your head screwed on as far as, you know, you have someone on your place and they're your responsibility out with your normal farming, I don't think it should be a problem. It's just a case of, I think it's opening it up to farmers a little bit more, making it look a little bit less scary. I think that would be a great idea, and harking back to kind of the old ways that, you know, apprenticeships used to be, and it was a very commonplace. Whereas now, I think farmers are terrified to let people, general public, schools on the farm, and I think that's an absolute crying shame, because done sensibly, there's no reason why you can't mitigate risk. You look around, make sure, you know, you do it yourself. You don't take risks on purpose, so you're able to go, actually, we'll do it a different way. Then you know, do that and invite kids on the farm. I just wish more people weren't as scared to do it, but that is very much a kind of that's the way of the world at the minute. Hopefully it'll come around.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I was just, there was one last, is he Tom gone? There was a question, it does say tongue in cheek, where can I find it? From Dave again. What improvements do you think should be made to the computer program Farming Simulator to make it more realistic? I have to say I'm not familiar with Farming Simulator.
My youngest, if he was here, and he's probably hovering about outside, would be probably better suited to answer that, actually. I think he was on about it being in dollars and things like that instead of pounds. So I would like some pounds and some acres, please, rather than years. But that's my knowledge. That is it.
Brilliant. Well, even if we have lost Tom, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's joined us this afternoon for the chat. Thank you for the questions and comments. I have been putting links in there for useful resources, and I've used the information that you've sent me on risk assessments. So I've put some health and safety information in there as well for anyone who's a teacher who might be now thinking about doing a school visit to a farm. And thank you so much for your time and for giving us a clearer picture of how farming can bring both science and sustainability to life in our classrooms. It's really appreciated.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I'm just looking at
absolutely.
Tom's actually on the chat. Sorry, so Tom is there, but his phone's died.
Oh, good. Yeah. And Tom, you know, obviously I'm a massive advocate of farmer time. It's so beneficial for children, and you can use it in so many different ways if you just liaise with the farmer that you partner with, from asking the kids, year 6 kids asking about the effects of Brexit, through to year 3 soils and the amount of microbes there are on a teaspoon of soil, which is more than the humans on the planet. The kids, you know, it's such a brilliant thing, and it's free, and that's through Leaf Education for anybody that would want to
I
sign up
did
for
need to
that.
point out to Tom that I do farmer time as well, but just not as often as he does. So that's something else that we do here. So I think it's invaluable, especially around busy times of the year. So lambing sheds and things like that. It's great to jump on 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You can do it wherever, as long as you've got a good signal. That's the benefit of it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And just Nicola, I have caught your questions as we've gone through. What I'll do is I'll try and get some answers for you so that you can then pass the answers on to your students. I will try and follow that up. I'm not sure if we've got your email, but if not, I'll do a blog on it on the STEM community in future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Anne and Tom. It's much appreciated.
Sure.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening.
Same to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.